Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I bet you're getting fed up with Pleone videos. These are the two pots I bought at Mather's last year. So these came in flower. I think the visit was towards the end of March, something like that. Might have been April, but around that time of year, in bloom. They've grown large bulbs, and although I don't really want to repot them, they're not in a good position for the new bulbs to actually grow well. So let's do these one at a time or we'll get the tags muddled up. So we'll get that out of the way. And this is this one. This is Pleione Vicky. And why I've got them out of the pots is I want to see what's going on with the bulbs, because they are quite buried. Their mix is very heavy on the moss. Quite large chunks of bark in their mix as well, looking at it. But effectively, these are the new bulbs that grew last year. So these originally were flower spikes with the start of a leaf, and they grew on, had a leaf, and the bulbs swelled up to what you see now. So that's how these have progressed to what we see now. Now I don't think, although these feel very much like they're joined together, I doubt if they are. I think they were. Anyway, we've got one there. Now that's got two new shoots. So again, two flowers should be. Two blooms. Let's get the old dead sheaths out of the way. So that's a nice bulb ready to go. So I'm not sure whether these two weren't joined. There's the old bulb, shriveled down to nothing. Now gone. Now this one's also got two new growths coming on nicely. So that's 4 blooms. We couldn't see these new growths, they were buried in the pot because these were quite deep. And this one again has 2 new growths. So in theory we have 6 blooms to come on these. Now if these go back in the same pot, which is a very flimsy cheap rubbish pot, so they're not going back in that, I will sort out what I'm going to plant them in, but I want to keep the leca in case I want to use it. I have got some of my own down in the shed, but it's buried under a load of stuff and I don't really want to go down there and unbury it. Right, so we've got the leca to one side again. Put these over in that corner, and now we've only got 2 bulbs here. So although I thought those were quite expensive, which being at Mather's they were, you have to bear in mind what I bought was 3 flowering sized bulbs in bloom. That's what I paid for. By the end of this year I'm going to have 6. So we will have 6 blooms followed by 6 mature bulbs, and in theory each of those next year will have 2 growths on. So we'll have 12. That's how quickly they can bulk up. And by then we'll have a really nice pot full that should look quite splendid. But it's a way off, you know. I mean, if you think about it, your other types of orchids, you work a year at a time in the main, don't you? You know, you either get them in flower or get them into flower yourself, and it's normally a year before they flower again, and during that time you get some new growths and produce some new roots. That's what you do. There's the old bulb. That one looks a bit more like an old bulb, doesn't it? So that's that one. And what have we got here then? What we've got here is the probability of 2 new growths. Why I say probable, because yes, we do, we have 2. In fact, we might have 3. Look very carefully. Got 1 there, tiny one. That looks like 1, and that is definitely 1. So we could have 3 new growths on there, but we've definitely got 2. Let's put that over with the right tag. Where'd the other one go? Here we go here. Again, let's get the sheaths off. And again, what's left of the old bulb, just tear that off. Now on this one, which is the smaller of the 2 bulbs, this one has got 2 new growths. So again, I bought 2 flowering bulbs. By the end of this year we'll have 4 new bulbs, and next year we could have 8 come the spring. So as I said, you can see how these bulk up quite quickly. Right, let's get rid of the rubbish in my bag, because I'm not reusing that media. It's the fact that it's highly likely that it's good and would do another year. I'm always wary of going too mad keeping moss around for too long. Now in the growing season these will get watered and fed well. They're quite high feeders, Pleiones, according to Mathers. According to some of the other information I got on the internet, not so much. Some people sort of give them a couple of feeds in the spring and then let them get on with it. But most of those people tend to be growing them outside. I'm not. I'm definitely going to keep mine in. They may go outside for the last part of the year. I haven't made my mind up yet. Now, as far as pots are concerned, I'm certainly not using these because they're horrible cheap rubbish stuff. And although they came from Mathers, they wouldn't expect you to keep your plants in those sort of pots. They're the cheapest you can get to sell. They're not selling you a pot, they're selling you plants. So they're gone, they'll go in the bin. I certainly won't reuse them. So I will now go and find what I'm actually going to pot these in. I'll be back. Okay, I've gone for these square pots. These were got for my Deesers. Well, a lot of them had Deesers in them that have, that failed. We lost quite a lot. But those we've got left are still doing okay. So far so good. I did lose quite a few though. There's 9 different ones, I've got 3 now. And one of those types was actually got last year at the NEC show, Gardeners World Live. So out of the 9 I got from my original guy down in Cornwall, I've got 2 left basically. So they haven't done very well. But I worked out what was going wrong and we won't do it again. So what I've got is what I've done is I've worked out roughly how deep the media was in the Mathers pots. Yeah? So down to the lecker was about that much media. So what I've done is I've put crocking bark in to bring it up to the level that would be the bottom of where the Mathers media ended. So that's what I've done. Now we need a mix. I'm going to use the same mix for all of my Pleiones. So that's seedling bark. I got this from, I can't remember where I got it. I think I got it from Burnham's. I'm pretty sure I got it from Burnham's. And if I go there again, what the hell's that? Is not seedling bark. That's bigger than the chunkiest bark I've got. Yeah, I will, because I got this specifically for the Pleiones. Now any Pleiones that I buy this year, if I get them from Mathers, they'll already be potted and in flower. So I won't need any compost until next year. However, if I buy any bare bulbs to bring on myself this year, I will need potting compost. And although this came from Burnham's, when I got it, it was quite damp. And it's been sat on top of the pot, resting against the radiator for most of the winter, with the top open. So gradually it's dried itself out. You can see there's an awful lot of dust in the bottom. I want some of that. I want some of that in the media. So that's that. I'm going to add some moss, and what I'm going to do with the moss is break it up, tear it apart basically, so that it's in small pieces and will mix in totally with the mix, and it'll be reasonably evenly distributed throughout the whole mix. That's different to what some people do. Some people sort of put it in as a layer a bit below the base of the bulb, so that they've got a very moist area to search for moisture when the roots start growing. Not so keen on that idea, but each to their own. I mean, that's the way I look at growing orchids. There's never one way. There are many ways, many environments, different countries, different parts of the world. There's all sorts of variables, and you've got to find what works for you. And that's what this year is for with my Pleiones, is to find out what works for me. And what we will do is, obviously at the end of the year, when the leaves drop off and we can see how big the bulbs are that we've produced, we can assess whether they've done reasonably well, not too good, or very well. But we won't be able to make that decision until the other end of the growing season, because this year's flowers are already in there. They're ready to go. The shoots are already starting. Those will become this year's bulbs and the basis for next year's flower shoots. So all good fun. Now I'm going to ease off now, because the last Pleiones I potted went in clay pots. These are going in plastic pots, and therefore they won't dry out as quick. So I don't want quite as much moss. I do want a bit more than that. Obviously, once it's been broken up and mixed in, you can't really take it out, can you? So I was trying to make sure I didn't get too much in. But I'm doing it by eye anyway. I know roughly what it should look like from years worth of mixing up orchid stuff. I mean, my mixes have changed over the years. I'm sure everybody else's has as well. And I mean, at one point I was adamant that moss, small bark and perlite was the way to go. It stays too wet for some orchids, especially in plastic pots. And then you've got periods when they're not growing much, where it's difficult to water them without getting them too wet. So I've gone for easing off on the moss in most cases now. There's still some that get some moss, but nowhere near as much as once was. Right, that'll do. Now what we need is some perlite, the dusty stuff. Always take care if you use perlite. I mean, if in doubt, wear a mask. Have done with it, you know. Especially when you get near the bottom of the tub or pot or whatever you've bought it in, bag, because that's where the dust is. So as you get near the bottom, the amount of dust increases. You've just got to watch what you're doing. Don't breathe it in. Keep your face well away from it. Then if any dust rises up because you've disturbed it, it doesn't go up your nose. So it drops down again. You know, it's a heavy dust, if you know what I mean, not a lightweight dust. Even though perlite weighs nothing. Right, so mix that in, and then that's our mix. So there's a bit less perlite and a bit less moss than the last mix that I did. For the Tongariro that we potted up a while back. And that's because this time we're using plastic pots, basically, simple as that. Right, so we get the mix, and these are relatively large bulbs, so we'll get the mix to a reasonable level. Now we want the bulbs in the middle and the new growths on the outside of the bulbs, because the bulbs will be gone by the end of the year, they will rot down. So what we want is 3 bulbs touching each other in the centre with the new growths pointing outwards. And then we should get a nice ring of blooms around the outside of the pot. The middle of the pot will be gone, these bulbs will rot down to nothing, and we should have 6 nice new fat bulbs heading towards the edge of the pot by the end of the year. That's my theory, what I have. This one does not want to stay upright. Right, then I'll just top this up. It will help steady them as well. Now Mather's had theirs potted quite deep. Most of the others I've seen, you know, I did do a lot of looking on the internet to see what people are up to. Most of them had 1/3 of the bulb buried, up to 1/2, and some of them had 2/3 of the bulb buried. I'm going to ease on the, especially in the plastic pot, because they will stay moister. So I'm going to ease on the, towards the halfway, bury the bulb halfway down. So that's that done. Tag back in. I won't bother doing a new tag because that is a Mather's tag. It's got their logo on. I mean, in my notes it says where I got it from and the date and everything, but you know, that is their tag, so we'll put that down in the corner. That's one done. Let's hope we've got enough mix for the what's left here. Yes, we should have enough here. Now again, we've got 2 quite large bulbs. We've got the one that potentially has 3 new growths and one that only has 2. So I'm going to plant, because we have square corners, yeah, there's more room between the bulb and the edge of the pot in the corner than there is on the side. So I'm going to pot these back to back with the new growths pointing towards the corners. That will give the maximum amount of room for the new bulbs. So sort of like that. Top those up. See, I'm not tapping the pot to get the media to settle around the roots, because any roots that were left on these bulbs are dead. They are of no use. They don't grow. They don't do anything apart from rot off. A lot of people take them off, literally. They strip them off so that they don't go in the pot. But some said that, you know, by leaving some of the roots on, you know, like an inch or so hanging off the bottom of the bulb, it helps hold the bulb upright. Especially if when you pour water on, it'd be quite easy to just bowl them over. That would be too much water in my case if I did that. Right, so we'll put our flag back in. So this is Pleione Hertha Kretz, and it's actually got the component parts that have actually gone into this. And basically it's a hybrid cross with it's probably one of the most common species, which is Formosana. It's the one that traditionally is called the windowsill orchid. Now obviously all the hybrids have come later, but you know, that was the species that was probably deemed the easiest to grow, and got the nickname the windowsill orchid. Now it got that nickname quite a long time ago. And you sort of think, well, hang on, most houses are far too warm to grow Pleiones. They probably weren't back when that nickname came in. This is when a lot of houses didn't have central heating. I mean, if I go back to when I was young, we never had central heating. We had an open fire in the lounge, coal and logs and stuff, and we had mobile paraffin heaters. They were brilliant because they gave off a good bit of heat, along with gallons of condensation, which formed on the inside of the windows, and because they got turned off overnight, that then froze on the inside of the windows. So yes, it would have been cold enough to grow Pleiones on the windowsill. Oh dear, memories. I remember, what was it, 62, 63, so I'd have been 12, still at school obviously. We had a really hard winter and everybody's pipes froze up. Nobody had any water, none, like, you know, and basically water tankers came round and you had to go out with your buckets to get some not frozen water for cooking and cleaning and washing and stuff. And people went a very long time without a bath because you couldn't carry enough buckets from the water truck out in the road. So yeah, we had some dirty people. They survived. Right, so that was that one with the 2 bulbs, and then this one is Vicky, which is a primary cross. If that's focused, then you can read it. So this is a primary cross, this one. Yeah, so and the only other Pleone I've got that I'm not doing anything with is the one from Burnham's, which is the species Formosana, aforementioned, and it's quite a small bulb, and there's enough room in the pot it's in, and it got potted at the beginning of last year, so the media's not old, so that's staying where it is. Right, so there we go. All my Pleiones are now up and running, ready for the new season. We will watch their progress with interest. It's good because, unlike a lot of other orchids, the first thing that happens is they come into bloom. Then we get leaves, and then they grow. So, you know, we'll be looking forward to blooms on my Pleiones within the next, I would say probably within 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. But again, as this is my first year, I will make a note of when the spikes push on at a reasonable rate, when it becomes obvious they're growing, which they're not at the moment. They're just sitting there dormant, waiting for probably longer days. They don't wait for temperature, although they probably do wait for a slight rise in temperature. But these are cool growers, they don't like to get warm. So we'll see how they do. And so I'm just going to lift these up a bit because they're a bit low in the pot. Lift them up a bit and then top it up so that they're nearer the top of the pot. So they're quite low down compared with the other pot. Just we'll have them both the same, won't we? So there we go. So we'll get some water on these now, find a place to put them. Now that they're in bigger pots, they can't go back where they were because they will block my view of the bird feeders, and we're not having that. So I'll have to find a new place for these. In fact, well, I can see where I'll put them. So there we go. Those are my Pleiones done. Start of season work finished. Now all we've got to do is wait and see what happens. With interest in my case, because this was a new genus last year. First time. So we'll see how we do. Bye for now. See you next time.